As we evaluate the 2024 NFL draft class, Dynasty Leagues starting to draft up. We've got your fantasy outlook for some of the rookie class of running backs, wide receivers, quarterbacks, tight ends, some sleepers, some immediate contributors, all coming up on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson, as always, at BD Peacock, at Williamson NFL. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Appreciate all the everydayers out there, and we always appreciate it when you hit that subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Today's episode of P&W is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and my competitive side is a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google Play. Start with running backs, because this is an interesting running back class to me, Matt. Yeah. I think this is where the savvy or lucky fantasy owners out there can really make some money on the running. Like, who's going to hit in this, I think, very sleeper-laden running back class, because there is not the Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley and Leonard Fournette, highly drafted Bijan Robinson, even Jahmyr Gibbs. There's none of that in this draft class. So as you go through, I think you could find a fit, a player, maybe a guy that's one break away from getting a chance to get on the field and be a weapon for your fantasy team. So talk to me about this running back class as it pertains to fantasy football in 2024 and beyond.
Yeah, a couple things is I don't think it's a great class. I mean, in terms of studs, but I do think there is fantasy gold to be mined here. And I even like some of these late round picks as dart throws at the end of your draft, let alone for Dynasty. Check us out on Locked On Dynasty. That's been fun as well. A couple things of note. Big picture. You know, when you're paying attention to this stuff, you know, you draft Labor Day weekend or whatever, do a little prodding to see if there's any nuggets about these guys' pass protection, because nothing keeps rookie running backs off the field more than fumbling and poor pass protection. But if you're getting good reviews from the beat reporters, maybe you pull the trigger on these guys. But if we were to come up with a list of the 5 most running back needy teams to start before the draft actually took place, with Dallas at the top of them, a lot of those teams didn't draft a running back. So some of the prime landing spots didn't get landed on, you know, so it's kind of interesting that way. But for example, I want to talk about the guys at the top, but the 2 that I really like, basically based on landing spots, and I love these players, was the 5th rounder for the Giants, Tyrone Tracy. I mean, Singletary's ahead of you. So what? I mean, this guy's such a good receiver. The Giants, I think, will be losing a lot. I could see him making a lot of impact in the second half of the season. And then one of my favorites is kind of a bowling ball. It reminds me of Jaylen Warren out of Troy, Kamani Vidal, who ended up with the Chargers in the 6th round. Like, those are two guys I'm going to keep a serious eye on very late in my drafts.
Yeah, you stole one of mine too.
Really?
Receiving ability is really important in your PPR leagues. And when there is a backfield where a young, spry rookie with fresh legs could come in and really make an impact, those are where you're really making money, I think, in your fantasy leagues, and finding players that could absolutely explode. Another player I like that was a day 3 draft pick is Jalen Wright out of Tennessee. And he went to the perfect team, the perfect fit. The problem is there's a lot of speed already in front of him. So he stylistically is perfect. It just might take a while and some injuries. But the 2 guys in front of him have a long list of injuries. You know, Raheem Mostert is the guy I comped Jalen Wright to, and he went to the same team, and it could be used in the exact same way. So I absolutely love that fit for Jalen Wright out of the University of Tennessee going to the Miami Dolphins in round 4. You just might have to wait around a little bit for, you know, a running back in his 30s to maybe get dinged up. And we've seen Achane and the success he's had, you know, similar speed profile, different players, you know, Wright runs a little bit more like Mostert than he does Achane, but we're talking about speed here, guys. One cut runners in that system. You see the gap, you hit it, you can rip off really big runs. And so he's absolutely somebody I'm going to be targeting and just kind of stashing and waiting to see if the injury bug strikes guys who the injury bug has already stricken many times in the NFL. And I don't think Achane's ever going to be that bell cow back.
Sure.
So, I think it's a perfect opportunity to have essentially similar production with a 1-2 punch at running back, whereas it's less, thunder and lightning than maybe some teams have. It's just like, okay, who gets the most carries between those two guys going forward, post Mostert era for Jalen Wright and Achane with the Dolphins. So love that fit.
Yeah, and I meant to say to start the episode too, is you and I have talked our fair amount of fantasy running backs over the years. And not to put words in your mouth, but you're often talking about not if these guys get hurt, but when, at this position. So it looks like some of these guys are buried, but they're going to get a shot at some point. Just be patient with the 4th round rookie, because there's a really good chance they're going to get their shot. And the Packers, Marshawn Lloyd, I think, is a perfect example. Like, I don't even know why they re-signed A.J. Dillon. He looks shot to me. I think Lloyd will be better than him from the start.
A.J. Dillon looked shot when he was in college. Like, I never really got that pick. And, he's got tree trunks for legs.
That's the beauty of
all that. But just to this day and age, his style of play is not going to be a big-time fantasy contributor.
No, I don't. So he's not an obstacle at all, in my opinion. And Josh Jacobs has taken a lot of wear and tear over the years. I mean, I could easily paint a story where Marshawn Lloyd is a RB10 in all the lists in week 8. You know what I mean? Like in a league winner type guy, and he catches the ball.
You know what, Matt? I don't know if we've talked enough about, because, we didn't expect a lot from the Carolina Panthers draft coming in because they didn't have the first round pick, but they traded up one spot to draft a wide receiver and then
trade up again for Brooks,
and then trade up and then get a mid-second round running back, a guy in Jonathan Brooks, who I get him being the best running back in the class, but he's coming off an ACL as well. Like, Carolina Panthers are a running back away. What are they doing over there? And we'll see if Jonathan Brooks is even ready for the start of the season. But I mean, that's really hard to project what he's going to be early in his career. So, and are they going to be opening up big holes for him? Is it going to be a team that's running the football a lot in fourth quarter, stepping on the necks of opposing teams too? So I just don't like the fit, and I don't know what the Panthers are doing. I don't think we talked enough about how just curious that whole team is being run right now.
I don't think they're being run well at all. I mean, trading up for an injured running back when you're the worst team in the league, I don't care who he is. If it's Walter Payton, sounds like a terrible idea to me. Moving up one spot just for the 5th-year option on Leggett when there's receivers falling left and right makes no sense to me. I will give them credit, though. They made a deal with the Rams in the 2nd round where they got a real haul. They moved up to get Fisk, I think it was. And they end up getting the Rams 2nd next year. So they kind of made up for it. But
like that.
Yeah. I just wanted to at least throw them a bone there. Speaking of the Rams, though, I don't know what you think of Kyren Williams. He had a great year. I just think he's a very average player and just more of a product of his environment. And he's not the biggest guy in the world. I mean, if Corum's even his direct handcuff only, I want Corum.
I hate this kind of for both players because I think it's going to be a pure committee there. And so, if you can get Corum at a value for sure, and, maybe he ends up being a little bit more bell cowy than Kyren Williams, but Kyren Williams is
not to interrupt, but I don't know how much you've looked at it, but Kyren Williams is going in the 1st round of fantasy drafts. Like, not to me, I'm not touching him in the 1st round.
And now it makes it a little bit more difficult, and that's what's tough with these running backs too, because you're like, oh man, let's draft this guy in my dynasty league. Well, if he was a day 3 pick, 5th rounder, that same team might draft a 3rd rounder the next year anyway and crush your dynasty guy.
Yeah, that happens all the time.
Yeah. And that's basically what's happening with the Rams here. Obviously, they love Corum for the production they were getting from Williams, and to still go get Corum in the 3rd round here on day 2. So that's an interesting one. Trey Benson, I think, is probably the guy I would expect the most from the earliest, maybe in this class.
Him and Wright, I kind of like where him and Wright are at, because Achane aside, obviously there's someone ahead of him, Mostert and Connor, but for how much longer? No, I mean, those guys, they're on hole 17 in running back world,
And the second pick in round 3 is a pretty early running back pick this day and age. That's them telling us they think Trey Benson is a starting running back for them in at least the nearish future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. I think he should be the first rookie off the board. Again, I mean, Connor doesn't have the best injury history. He's up in age. It could even get to the point where the Cardinals are 2-6 and say, let's see what the young guy can do,
You mentioned some passing down stuff. Isaac Guerendo is an interesting one because he wasn't even a starter in college, but he's obviously 6'1", 220, ran 4.33, crazy ability, and has receiving ability. So if you're looking for a PPR stash in the case of a Christian McCaffrey injury, maybe, but McCaffrey does not want to come off the field. If McCaffrey's healthy, no other running backs can have value in San Francisco. But that's one where it's like, okay, maybe some PPR ability in case of a star running back gets hurt and then the team goes scrambling and has a committee behind him. Maybe Isaac Guerendo, but I'm looking for some more later round value here, and I think we hit a lot of them. Tyrone Tracy in New York is probably one of my favorites. It's
screaming to me.
Yeah,
the Tyrone Tracy one. Two others I just want to throw out there I think are late round values. Estime's probably only a Javonte Williams injury away, although P. Ryan's in the mix. But the one I really like is Ray Davis in Buffalo. I mean, he's so much different than Cook. It could be a thunder and lightning thing, I mean, he's overaged. He probably won't last in the league long, but for redraft this year,
that's one where it doesn't make me want to draft Ray Davis, but it makes me worried about the touchdown vulturing of Cook.
Big time. Yeah. I mean, Allen does enough of that anyway,
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Double vulture for Cook now in Buffalo. All right. Let's talk wide receivers, much more high impact players there. And
by the way, Marvin Harrison's going like 15th overall. I mean, he's going like between like Garrett Wilson. I mean, that's the neighborhood Marvin Harrison's going in redraft right now.
All right, Marvin and the rest of them, and some quarterback, tight end, potentially early contributors. How many of those are there in this draft? Next. This episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by Monopoly Go. All right, it's game off. Got to pause here to talk about Monopoly Go, talk more about Monopoly. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You've already talked a lot about that, but there's just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with your friends. You can crush your friends, by the way. But let's talk about if you want to team up with your friends for time tournaments where you work together. You build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you can unlock. Unique stickers. You can trade with friends. Complete albums for big prizes. Cool new playing pieces on Monopoly, which is always, that when I was playing Monopoly, is always the most important thing was the playing piece, right? Emojis for taunting and all kinds of fun things. And of course, you can knock over your friends' buildings, charge them exorbitant rents on the classic and iconic Monopoly, different Monopoly properties. Have a bunch of fun. Monopoly Go with your friends, against your friends. Always new timed events as well to help you win big. Always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So go get off the bench and download it now, free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Marvin Harrison Jr., number 1 dynasty asset, number 1 rookie fantasy player. Easy? Is it just that easy?
It's that easy. Yeah. Neighbors is right behind him, but it's that easy. Yeah. I mean, better quarterback play,
better quarterback,
competition.
Clear, number 1, clear, like ready to play, developed wide receiver. Yeah. It's
probably where are you willing to take him in redraft? I mean, like, again, he's going like right next to like Garrett Wilson, from what I understand. It's like, wow, that's for a rookie.
I mean, I can see it. I can see it.
Yeah.
You're shooting for upside. It does take rookie wide receivers some time, though. So, there's probably a point where you're like, okay, that's too high, but that just means someone else is going to fall to you that's a veteran player in your fantasy redraft. But 1.1 in dynasty leagues. Let's talk about the rest of this rookie wide receiver class. Who do you like? Who's going to go off in their rookie seasons, Matt?
So Harrison and Neighbors aside, I mean, they're going to go way higher than anyone else in redraft. I'm a little skeptical, to be honest, of the next group. I'm just going, I just pulled up draft history and I'm looking at, where these guys landed. I'm not going to spend a ton on Odunze or Thomas with the Jags or Worthy or Pearsall.
Great pick for a dynasty league, right? And then
yes.
You love where he kind of fits in. He's the number 3. He can be, on one side you got DJ Moore, and then you've got a middle of the field player. And so I love the team building strategy, different strengths and weaknesses for the top guys. Rome Odunze, you can bring him along as fast as he needs to be brought along, but I wouldn't be shocked either because he's a pretty developed guy that he is kind of ready to go by the end of his rookie season. So maybe he's the one where you get a little bit of a, everyone sees him, okay, number 3 wide receiver, don't draft him early, but he's just as good as, say, Neighbors or even Harrison as a fantasy player by week, 10.
Maybe. I lean he's going to have more of a Jackson Smith-Njigba rookie year, though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just kind of stuck against really good players.
Yeah.
Better for NFL than for fantasy. Like, I can't start him week 1.
I will say that there's also a rookie quarterback, so there's not a previously built rapport that the quarterback has with the other receivers. So if he's able to grab that, and in 3 wide receivers,
Keenan Allen's going to demand so many targets.
I think he will too, and the coaching staff is going to call things a certain way for the young quarterback. But when you're going 3 wide, and if they go a lot of 3 wide, which I think they will, he'll be on the field as a starter a lot starting week 1. So if they build that rapport quickly, that's just the question: how quickly that happens.
And I know he's a better prospect than JSN, but I got burned pretty hard by JSN last year, especially in dynasties. And that story's not written yet, but it's hard to feed 3 mouths, and I don't think it's going to be the best passing game in the league.
So who's
there's 2 that stand out. Yeah, go ahead.
The next group of guys, basically starting at the 23rd pick in the draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars selected Brian Thomas Jr. out of LSU. And then late round 1 into early round 2, there was a nice little run of players. And here are the players. So Brian Thomas Jr. was 23. 28 overall, the Kansas City Chiefs moved up to get Xavier Worthy. Niners took Ricky Pearsall at 31. Xavier Legette, 32 by the Panthers. Then you had Keon Coleman to start round 2 to the Buffalo Bills. Ladd McConkey, the second pick in round 2. 4 wide receivers in a row in the draft there, going to the Los Angeles Chargers. Jalen Polk to the Patriots, and then you had Adonai Mitchell to finish up the second round wide receivers there. Malachi Corley, I think we know what he is. Very first pick in round 3 to the Jets is a gadget guy, and probably not someone you're going to draft early in your fantasy leagues, and he's going to have some some schemed touches early in his career. But that other group, there's a lot of guys there. Who do you like to make an impact as a rookie from that class?
I think Thomas, Worthy, Pearsall, Legette will all be overdrafted and redraft.
Yeah,
but I'm very interested. Yeah,
Ricky Pearsall, as long as there's not a Debo or Ayuk trade, and I don't envision that happening, he's going to be relegated to slot duties, and he'll have some nice plays where he's getting first downs, third down weapon potentially for the 49ers there, but he's not going to be a target hog, and that's not a high volume. Like a lot of people have comped Ricky Pearsall to, Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua.
No,
he doesn't.
Not used.
Anyone doesn't run a Sean McVay. I'm going to target one guy 150 times, and that's without him being blocked by the other 2 receivers and running back and tight end in that offense. So fantasy wise, Ricky Pearsall, unless there's an injury, he doesn't have a big path to production at all.
And I think Worthy and Thomas will get overdrafted. I don't think they're going to be target hogs as rookies.
I mean, I kind of like Worthy because of where I love his landing spot for him. Let me put it that way.
Oh yeah, I just think his stock will be higher than I'm willing to pay because people will be buzzing about
fastest guy going to the Chiefs, going to Patrick Mahomes, right? But starting usage. I mean, they traded up for him in the first round. I think he's going to be on the field.
I think he's going to have a lot of value in the real world. But the ones I like of the group are Coleman and especially McConkey. I think McConkey's going to lead the Chargers in targets.
Yeah, so we're the same guy. I had a feeling, but McConkey in that group, that's the one I'm drafting first for immediate redraft usage.
What do you think about Coleman? I don't love the player, but great spot.
Again, great spot. He's got a quarterback that's not afraid to throw him the ball if there's not a ton of separation to let him make a play. They did say he's going to play the X wide receiver spot and not be like a big slot, which is kind of good and bad. You kind of want a big slot role, potentially more targets closer to the quarterback and over the middle of the field, and Keon Coleman can do those things. But if he's the X and just walks into a starting role, he could have some big plays there as well. It depends for me on where they end up getting ranked. And so if everyone starts talking up Coleman, then he starts to climb up, and then I can get a deal on Worthy, then I might go Worthy. But, I don't know if that's it kind of depends on ADP for me for those guys. But Ladd McConkey seems to be the obvious one here.
Yeah. I mean, that's the one I'm most interested in on the surface here. Not studying ADP or any of that stuff yet, and it's very early. want to throw one thing by you too, and I had this conversation yesterday on Locked On Dynasty that when we previewed the NFL draft, the Patriots looked like the worst landing spot ever. You know, like if May ends up in New England, I don't want him as much, even in Superflex. I kind of went the other way, though, post-draft, thinking the Patriots looked like a terrible landing spot because their offense is so bad. But especially in Dynasty, I don't mind getting in on the ground floor on May and Polk and Baker. I like the guys they added, and the O-line's kind of respectable now.
And I wouldn't be shocked at all if Baker earns just as big of a role as a fourth-round pick for the Patriots as
100%
did as the second round. You know, I think there was a huge gap in those prospects. It's just that, you know, somebody had to go first and somebody had to go second as far as those guys go. I'm
owning a lot of those stocks in Dynasty.
You know, Adonai Mitchell is an interesting one too because of what the upside could be, and not a lot of competition if he is ready to play early in his career. Just get ahead of Pierce. That's not that hard to do. Right, exactly. So that's an interesting one for the Indianapolis Colts. Looking down the list, the one that screams to me on day 3 is Troy Franklin. I don't know how he was still available at the end of the top 100 picks, and he gets to go play with his college quarterback. Troy Franklin with the Broncos. Path to playing time, I think he's as good a prospect, maybe a better prospect, albeit very different than Mims, the guy they drafted last year for the Broncos. So 100%. Franklin is somebody that I think is going to be basically free in redraft leagues and might have as much of an impact and has not that dissimilar of a profile than some of the guys that went in round 2 at the end of round 1. Like Xavier, would you be shocked at all if Troy Franklin had a better rookie campaign at wide receiver than Xavier Legette?
No, not at all. I think he's a really good player. I heard post-draft there was a little bit of character stuff people didn't love, but I don't really care about that for my fantasy team.
Yeah.
Which also brings me to Jermaine Burton.
You don't have a locker room that you have to watch and deal with these guys. Yeah.
I mean, I think Burton at least will take over for Higgins as the 2 next year, but will be the clear 3 in Cincy this year. So I think both those guys you could get pretty cheap that are more talented than their draft slot.
I was disappointed to learn that the Philadelphia Eagles, who drafted oversized wide receiver Johnny Wilson out of Florida State in the 6th round, I was disappointed to learn that they're going to use him at wide receiver and not tight end. I thought that was going to be like dynasty tight end stash, a guy who's 6'6", 235, who's going to be 240 after 2 more protein shakes by the end of training camp and be a flexed out tight end matchup mismatch for teams. And now he's going to be just a lost wide receiver on that roster. So goodbye to the fantasy value of Johnny Wilson, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I also really like the other guy they took too, Aeneas Smith, but there's no room for either one of them. You know, I mean, they're going to be 3 and 4s at best in Philadelphia.
Smith will get some return usage at least. Johnny Wilson's just going to sit there, probably not even with a uniform on Sundays.
Probably not. And one last one I want to throw out there from the receiver world is I guess injuries hurt Malik Washington a little bit. But true slot, he could be the number 3 in Miami right off the bat.
Oh, and in dynasty leagues, even, it's going to be Waddle and who else there at wide receiver. So Malik Washington. And again, I like those
feed and right.
Sneaky good drafts by the Miami Dolphins, in my opinion. I
agree.
All right, let's talk quarterbacks and tight ends, Matt. Is there any early contributors on 2 positions that sometimes struggle to contribute early in their NFL careers? Next. This episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 extra to play with and bet on spreads, money lines, player props. How about rookie of the year bets? Tons of NFL futures as well at FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get $150 extra bucks to play with if your first bet wins. That is FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, Caleb Williams is the headliner. They've rebuilt that entire Bears team. Much better situation that he gets plugged into than the former quarterback in Chicago. Is this the guy, Matt? Do we finally have the guy? And could it start as early as, say, week number 1? Could Caleb Williams or any of these rookie quarterbacks be the CJ Stroud of 2024?
I don't love it for redraft, to be honest, because there are it's hard. There's so many quarterbacks out there for redraft reasons. I just want to throw this out there, but so I make sure I get it out there, though, because in Dynasty Superflex, I am going to draft Spencer Rattler. I mean, I think could see them getting so sick of Carr by the end of the year that Rattler at least gets a chance in week 12 or something. So I'm just throwing that out there. Obviously, we'll focus on the tops. Yeah, I mean, I know he went late.
We mentioned a lot of good landing spots for the player. Rattler and the Saints is probably, and look, next year's quarterback class doesn't look amazing. No. So let's say you're Spencer Rattler and you get some starts down the stretch for a struggling Saints team, and you look okay. You might get a whole year to see what you got in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, much like the dude that Washington has traded to Seattle from North Carolina. I'm talking about, who was a starter for the last 2 years. He's a rookie with.
Yeah, I was Sam Howell.
Yeah, I mean, like the 5th round guy that gets in there and isn't bashful at all, and this guy's an NFL player. You know what I mean?
Talent is he? Mature?
Yeah, right.
Earlier times in college, and so. I do like that one. So that's a good call there. And I want to remind people how rare it is for someone to do what CJ Stroud did last year. So the right answer is probably that nobody's going to do that this year.
That's my short answer. Is I probably in redraft won't own any of these guys. I think people get too excited about Caleb Williams as an overall prospect, as a rookie, and probably too excited about Jayden Daniels as a runner. Like, I don't think he's a run for 800 yards.
I think that's probably, if you're looking for a rookie to give you fantasy value, it's the extra added value, even if it's not Lamar Jackson stuff. I mean,
right,
we saw what it looked like for Justin Fields to be extremely relevant and not be playing great quarterback and be a fantasy relevant player. So Jayden Daniels, who's played a lot of college football, he's a mature prospect. He is going to be the starter, right? And so Jayden Daniels is probably the redraft fantasy quarterback one of all the rookies, if I had to guess, just because of that extra added value he could give you with his legs.
And I don't know if there's any truth to this or not, but it's just my hunch. I don't know if they'll design quarterback runs, especially to the Fields or Hurts degree early in their career, or the Allen degree. I mean, like, I think he wants to be a pocket passer and then he runs. You know what I mean? Like, and he's so frail and taking so many hits. Frail's the wrong word, but I don't want to run quarterback power time and time again with this guy.
No. And he's not good at protecting himself either.
At all.
His running, and hopefully this is what happens though for teams is it's a rookie quarterback. Maybe he's not as refined as a passer, and none of these guys are. The most pocketed passer coming out of college is not going to be as refined as a pocket passer in the NFL as the team probably wants. So that's the cheat code is, okay, he's athletic. Let's lean into that. Let's use it more. Right. And so that's what tends to happen for teams, even when the plan is, that's, running ability is going to come naturally throughout the course of the game when it needs to happen. And then you need to win a football game and you're like, well, his best thing is running right now. And so let's run a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Let's pivot to tight ends. I think they're a little more interesting than you would think, and not just Brock Bowers. So I pulled up just a generic fantasy ranking list, and I was just curious, like, where would I put Bowers? I think I'm taking, like, Evan Ingram ahead of him, Njoku,
you said Goddard. For redraft?
For redraft, yeah. And certainly the guys at the top, the Kincaids and McBrides and Andrews and Laportos and Kelsey. Like, I'm not sure Bowers would be in my top 12 redraft tight ends. I mean, it's not a great landing spot.
Can I make an argument, Matt?
Sure.
That the Raiders drafting Brock Bowers after spending a high second round pick on Mayer last year is better for Brock Bowers' fantasy relevance because he doesn't need to be used at all as a traditional wide tight end. Right. Look at him as a wide receiver, and he's going to be on the field a lot as a rookie for the Las Vegas Raiders.
I just hate who's throwing to him. Devontae Adams, Myers, I mean, there's an outside chance Adams get traded, then I would bump him a little, but there's just a lot of good tight ends. I don't know that I can take him over Dallas Goedert or Ingram or Njoku or,
he's going to go high in redraft.
He's going to go high.
So far and away the best rookie tight end.
So how about these names? I mean, these are more dynasty names for sure, But I won't be interested in any of them on draft day redraft. But I am going to keep a very tight eye on Ben Sinnott with Washington. Nobody near him. I mean, nothing in front of him. Jatavian Sanders with the Panthers. Again, hardly anything in front of him. Talented player. And my favorite is Eric All with the Bengals. I mean, just stay healthy, Iowa tight end, and you might be the guy there.
Right. That's an easy one because if he's healthy, then he could be very usable. Right.
Yeah, like as a rookie.
And if he's not, then
he's not.
Put him on your IR, right? So that's an easy decision there.
Bad tight end draft from an NFL perspective, but there are a couple spots, and even Jared Wiley with the Chiefs if Kelsey retires after this year for dynasty,
right? Or he gets banged up or something like that. Yeah. Dynasty, maybe that's one. Jaheim Bell's kind of an after the catch, undersized, back sort of a tight end. I can't believe he fell all the way to the 7th round. Tanner McLaughlin.
They're gonna be on my watch list. Really have a lot of these rookies will be on my watch list.
I like Ben Sinnott because where's the competition? They drafted him high. Like we talked about with some of the running backs. Like you draft a tight end here, they think he's going to play early. So Ben Sinnott's a really interesting one to me. Tip Ryman, not so much. He was the 3rd tight end. I think he's a little bit more of a project. So probably
same
not
with Theo Johnson, too.
Right? Theo Johnson, I could see being ready to like run the seam right away and be on the field a lot because he's big and willing blocker too, which is obviously that's a big thing too. Because if you can't block guys coming off the edge, you're not going to be on the field similar to like a running back. And there's a lot to learn. So the learning curve is usually a little bit lengthier for tight ends too. So yeah, I think really it's Brock Bowers and Ben Sinnott if I'm expecting any redraft value from any of these tight ends.
Yeah, I didn't love Sanders coming out of Texas, but landing with Carolina I thought was attractive. Again, I mean, a lot of good landing spots for the tight ends. We'll see how it goes.
But, and Carolina, Xavier Legette's a very the way he's going to get targeted and the way he plays is very specific. Jonathan Mingo, very specific the way he plays, the way he's going to be targeted for a quarterback, a young quarterback, for an athletic tight end that could be open over the middle of the field. Yeah, you could really paint a picture for Jatavian Sanders there for being someone who's just more naturally open and getting targets throughout the course of the game.
Just opportunity,
Yeah. There you go. That is the rookie class of running backs, wide receivers, quarterbacks, tight ends, some good value, some sneaky sleepers, and some potential superstars from day one for your fantasy and dynasty leagues. Matt and I back tomorrow. Let's take a peek, Matt, at the 2021 first round because all of those 5th-year option decisions have been made. And due to those decisions, we can make a lot of, and we could have anyway, make a lot of, hindsight and really, really, truly grade the 2021 NFL draft coming up tomorrow right here on Peacock and Williamson.